Top 10 highest transfer fees in English Premier League history. The English Premier League is by far the richest league competition in football. In terms of TV rights, revenue, competition payouts, and player wages, no other league in Europe compares. The consequence of this is the fact that player transfer fees are often inflated, as Premier League clubs usually have lots of money to spend, and the rest of the world knows it. However, signing a player for big bucks does not always guarantee a good return on investment. In this video, we take a look at 10 of the most expensive transfers in English Premier League history and how the players fared at the clubs that signed them. Up to 3 players can lay claim to the 10th place spot, as Nicolas Pepe, Kepa Arrizabalaga and Kai Havertz all cost £72 million, but we'll go with the most recent signing. At the time that Chelsea signed him, Kai Havertz was not only one of the highest rated youngsters in German football, his stock had risen rapidly all over Europe too. The silky forward broke into the first team at Bayer Leverkusen at the tender age of 17, almost immediately proving himself to become a regular fixture in the first team. By the time he joined the Blues, he had made over 150 appearances for Bayer and he was only 21. However, his first couple of seasons at Chelsea were a bit of a mixed bag. He only found the back of the net 4 times in 27 league games in his debut season, but managed to double that number in 29 appearances the following year. Kai Havertz also scored the winning and only goal in Chelsea's UEFA Champions League final match against Manchester City in 2021, so his name is forever etched in the Blues' history. Not bad at all, but he'll be the first to admit it could be better. When Wesley Fofana joined Chelsea Football Club in the summer transfer window of 2022, he only had one major trophy under his belt, the FA Cup trophy that Leicester City won in 2021. Coincidentally, Leicester City had beaten Chelsea in the final to win that trophy, but there were no indications back then that Fofana would soon be playing in a different shade of blue. Despite only bursting onto the scene as a fresh-faced teenager with the French club Saint Etienne in 2019, Wesley Fofana's stock rose pretty quickly when he joined Leicester City in the Premier League in 2020. He became recognised as one of the brightest defensive talents in Europe and even earned international caps with a star-studded French national team to boost that profile further. A fibula fracture threatened to derail his career in 2021, but Fofana bounced back strongly enough to convince suitors that the injury was only a blip. Thomas Tuchel, in particular, must have been very convinced, as the Chelsea manager sanctioned a £75 million deal to bring the centre-back to Stamford Bridge, making him the 9th most expensive signing in the history of the league. The signing of Virgil van Dijk from Southampton was arguably one of the best bits of business that Liverpool made this turn of the century, and that's saying a lot, considering the fact that he cost a fee in the region of £76 million. At the time, this was a world record fee for a defender, but one that proved to be worth every penny. The colossal Dutch centre-back linked up with the Reds in the winter transfer window of the 2017-18 season, and he immediately shored up a backline that had been leaking goals for years on end. A debut goal against bitter rivals Everton was a sign of things to come, as he went on to become one of the best centre-backs in world football. He won every major trophy available with the club, and even came second place to Lionel Messi in the Ballon d'Or rankings of 2019. In a world where players who are signed for huge amounts of money struggle under the pressure of those fees, Virgil van Dijk has proven that even a record fee can become a bargain. Romelu Lukaku's career has been a rollercoaster of highs and lows. He joined Chelsea from Anderlecht as a highly rated youngster, but failed to secure a place in the first team between 2011 and 2014. Then, he joined Everton, and his career really took off. 87 goals and 166 appearances for the Toffees later, Manchester United was convinced enough to shell out a fee in the region of £76 million for the Belgian powerhouse, and it was assumed that he would simply pick up from where he'd left off at Goodison Park. However, Lukaku never really got going at United. 16 league goals in his debut season was not a bad return at all, but the struggles of the club on the pitch affected his output, and he became a regular target for blame, even when it was undeserved. He only managed 12 league goals the following year, and Manchester United was happy to let him leave for Inter Milan at the end of the 2018-19 season. At least they made their money back from the sale. Manchester United has never been a club to be deterred by below-par performances of previous expensive signings. Despite a track record for a number of underwhelming returns from this sort of signing, they were not shy to open the wallet once again for highly rated English youngster Jadon Sancho. Sancho was a youth product from the other side of Manchester, but he had been plying his trade in the German Bundesliga for a few seasons when Manchester United came for him in 2021. They struck an agreement with Dortmund to pay £76.5 million for the player, and he was soon donning red and white in Stretford End. At the time, the signing of Sancho was the latest attempt from the club to bring in a player with the talent and stature to take the club back to its glory days. His first season was anything but that, but there is time yet for that to change. Possibly encouraged by how well Liverpool's signing of Virgil van Dijk went, Manchester United went on to make an expensive centre-back signing of their own. Harry Maguire cost even more than the Dutchman did, and there were bound to be comparisons right from the get-go. In 2019, Manchester United paid a fee in excess of £78 million to bring the Englishman to the club, following a couple of impressive seasons on King's Power. Considering the fact that the club had shipped 54 goals in the previous season, the signing of Harry Maguire seemed to be a good decision, as they only conceded 36 in his debut season. The club finished in third place, which was exactly what they wanted: progress. However, despite finishing in second place the season after that, their defensive performances got worse, and Maguire was often right in the middle of it. He soon joined a long list of highly rated players that seemed to lose form after joining Manchester United, but the amount of money shelled out for him ensured that he is one of the most scrutinised. There are a handful of clubs in world football that many players struggle to say no to, and Manchester United is one of them. Evidence of this fact presented itself when the English club made clear its intentions to bring Ajax winger Antony to Old Trafford. The Brazilian subsequently submitted a transfer request to his employers and even went on strike to force the club to accept Manchester United's bid. After many weeks of several rejected offers from United and repeated efforts by Antony to put pressure on Ajax, the Eredivisie club eventually gave in and accepted a bid in the region of £86.5 million. The deal was completed fairly quickly after that, and the 22-year-old attacker became the fourth most expensive signing in English Premier League history. Speaking of players that have faced a lot of backlash from club fans, Paul Pogba surely has many stories to tell. Paul is a product of Manchester United's famous youth academy, although he left the club for Juventus on a free transfer back in 2012. There, he grew to become one of the best players in his position in the world, and soon enough, his old club was clamouring for his signature. Juventus let him leave for a world record fee of £94.5 million, 4 years after they'd gotten him for free. However, despite a handful of game-changing performances and a particularly solid season in 2018, Pogba never really found the form that made him the most wanted midfielder in Europe. By the end of the 2021-22 season, fans had grown tired of his below-par performances on the pitch and his antics off it. Perhaps unfairly scrutinised, the decision for Pogba to run down his contract and leave on a free transfer once again was the best for all parties involved. For the second time, Juventus were the biggest winners. The only name that features twice in this list is Romelu Lukaku. After leaving Manchester United for Inter Milan, Lukaku found form and quickly became one of the deadliest strikers in Europe once again. 64 goals in 95 games within 2 years at Inter was enough to convince Chelsea that he was ready for return to the Premier League, and indeed to the club where he was supposed to develop in the first place. The club paid a hefty £102 million fee to bring Lukaku back to the Bridge, and there was a lot of hype around the fact that he was going home, fueled by the man himself. However, it proved to be a case of second-time unlucky for Lukaku, as he had a horrid debut season back in England. He only scored 8 times in 26 league appearances for the club and lost his place in the starting 11, despite the fact that Chelsea did not have a regular starter in his position. Like Pogba, he went back to his previous club with his tail between his legs. However, the deal in this case was a 1-year loan with no option to buy. Despite the backing of oil-rich owners and multiple expensive transfers since 2008, it's a bit surprising that Manchester City only has one player represented on this list. However, it is also fitting that this is the most expensive transfer of the lot. After many years at his boyhood club, Aston Villa, including a famous promotion-winning season to the English Premier League in 2019, Jack Grealish finally earned a move to the top of the league when City paid about £106 million for him in 2021. Highlights from his debut season were few and far between, and Grealish did not really establish himself as a key member of the starting 11. However, Pep Guardiola is known for gradually integrating new players into his system, and this is likely to be the case for Grealish. If one were to pass judgment from what we've learned in this video, it would be that, more often than not, the most expensive transfers also turn out to be the most expensive flops. Regardless, as long as English Premier League clubs continue to bank the huge revenues that they currently do, these fees will only continue to increase. £300 million player, anyone?